what do I think is the best motorcycle for a beginner? And so really, I think a beginner has 3 options, and there are really 3 different opinions on it. And so the first thing I want to say is that I don't think any beginner should have a 1000. It just doesn't make sense. They're too expensive, like $14,000 or $15,000. I wouldn't say they are too powerful, but I would say that they are certainly way more powerful than anything you would need. And I just don't, other than that they're expensive and they're really powerful, they're more dangerous than your other options of a 300 or a 600. And so I don't think a 1000 is a good place to start. So your other 2 options would then be get a 300 or get a 600. And so there are benefits and disadvantages to both. The benefits of getting a 300 is that it's relatively inexpensive. It'll be easy to learn on, and you'll progress your riding skills really quickly on a 300, just because it's easier to learn on something that's a little bit more friendly, something that's a little bit less powerful. The downside to that is you will most likely get bored of the motorcycle pretty quickly. Right, you'll get bored of it in the first couple months. I know I certainly would have. That if I had started on a like CBR 250 or like the Ninja 300 or something like that, I would have probably traded it back in after like the first 2 or 3 months. And it just didn't make sense to me to spend like $4,000 or $5,000 on something that I would only use for a couple of months and then give back away. And so I think if you do have some experience riding, that having a 600, starting out on a 600 isn't that bad of an idea. It's not that hard to think of, and it's not all, and it just makes a lot of sense. And so the usual argument for starting out on a 600 is that it's not the most expensive bike to start out on, it's not the most powerful, and it's something that you can progress on and you will grow into, and it's not something that you will get bored of, because 600s have plenty of power, and really they have more power than you would need to ever use. And so I think for a lot of people, especially people who have ridden things like dirt bikes before, starting out on a 600 is a good idea. It'll work out for them. But if you have no experience whatsoever, then a 300 or a 250 is definitely the way to go. If you have never been on a 2-wheeled vehicle, there's no reason for you to start out on a 600. Yeah, so if you are a beginner, the logical choice is to really choose the 300, just because that will make you the best rider in the shortest amount of time. And then you will be able to kind of climb through the ladder of 300, 600, 1000, and you'll be really good every step of the way. However, that was not the choice that I made. I did not start on a 300. I think that's actually quite a popular choice, is to not start on a 300, just because you do not want to spend money on something that you're going to get bored of. And that was really the main reason I decided not to start on a 300, was that I knew I would get bored of it. And so after sort of weighing that, saying that yes, I can afford to pay for it, and yes, I do think I will be able to enjoy a 600 for a much longer time, I decided to pull the trigger and just buy a Triumph Street Triple. And so it's a 675cc engine. It's not a super sport, so it's not crazy fast, but it is certainly fast enough to do any kind of riding that I would like to do. And if I had to choose one bike that I think would be good for any sort of person, it would definitely be this one. And I'm saying that after having ridden it for about 3,000 or 4,000 miles. And I would say that I agree with most of the reviews on it, is that it's just a really good overall bike. It can do anything that you would want it to do, and it excels at all of it. So I ride this like 90 to 95% of the time, just commuting back and forth to school and work, and it's fine with driving through the city, eating up these crappy roads, and it gets relatively good gas mileage. So it is fairly convenient to have as a commuter. But that's not the only thing it does well on. It's really, really easy to bring it up into the hills and into the canyons and take it through the twisties and have a lot of fun with it on the weekends. And so I think this is really the best place to start for the majority of the people that are looking to buy their first bike. And so when I say that, I'm saying it kind of ignoring the fact that it does cost probably more money than you would spend on definitely more money than you would spend on a 300. However, it is in the cheaper range of 600s. And so when I went out and bought it, I put a limit on my budget to $10,000, and I wasn't going to spend $1 more than $10,000. And so if you look at the CBRs and you look at the R6s and you look at the Ninjas, they're all $11,000, $12,000, $13,000. And so those were really out of the question. I just didn't want to spend more than $10,000 on my first motorcycle. And I wanted to buy one that was new, just because I don't have the time or really the patience to deal with something that isn't going to be working every time I get on it. And so having ABS was really the reason I bought the Street Triples, because ABS comes standard on all the Street Triples. It comes standard on the base model, it comes standard on the R, it's also on the RX. And so having ABS, I think, is a huge, huge, huge advantage when you're riding a motorcycle. And I don't think, and now that I have it and I've had to use it a couple of times, I wouldn't buy a bike without it. But other than that, especially for the beginning rider, the 675, it puts out a fairly level power band throughout the RPM range, so there's no one particular spot where you're going to be like kicked off the bike, or there's going to be a surge of power that's going to be like unpredictable and could possibly put you in a dangerous situation. And so while this bike does have plenty of power, it puts 97 or 98 horsepower to the wheel and like 50 foot-pounds of torque. It's plenty to get you going. It's spread out nicely so that it doesn't just all kick in at once. Yeah, and so I really think the Triumph Street Triple is the bike to get, especially for a beginner. Even if you're not a beginner, I think it's a fantastic motorcycle to have. Especially if you can only buy one. If you only have space for one, if you can only park one motorcycle, this would be the one to have, just because it's good at doing all sorts of different things. And so I think the best starter bike to get for anybody would be a Triumph Street Triple, just because it can do anything. And especially when you're starting out, you don't really know exactly what it is that you like and what it is that you want in a motorcycle. You just kind of want to get something to try it out. And I think this would be a good buy, because it can do everything you'd want it to do. And that's basically exactly where I started when I bought it, when I was looking to buy my first motorcycle. I didn't know what the hell I wanted. I just knew that I wanted like some sort of 600. I was looking at CBRs, I was looking at R6s, I was looking at Ninjas, and I was looking at the Triumph, and I was actually looking at the Daytona for a little bit. But I decided not to get the Yamaha because they don't offer ABS on any models, and ABS again is a huge safety feature. I decided not to get a Super Sport because, one, of my budget, and two, because I wasn't sure that I wanted to have the super crouched over riding position 100% of the time. And on the Street Triple, you can you have a more upright riding style, so while you're commuting, you'll have a nice, comfortable body position. But then if you want to, and you want to take it a little bit more aggressive, you can get into a crouch and you can really slide your butt back so that you are in a bit more of an aggressive tuck. So you can really feel a lot more of the performance of this bike. And I think that's a huge benefit, especially for the beginner who's going to want to try all the different kinds of things, all the different kinds of riding, and want to be able to do everything on one single motorcycle. It's a good looking bike too, right? It's pretty sporty. You can tell from just the way it looks, it has a pretty upright riding position, so you'll be pretty comfortable when you're on it. However, again, like I was saying, you can kind of stick your butt back into the back end of the seat, and you'll be in a more crouched, more aggressive riding position, so you'll be able to lean a little bit more and you'll be a little bit more comfortable going quicker. And so I really do think this is probably the best bike to get, especially if you don't really know where to start, just because it can do lots of different things.